Boston College has beaten Georgia Tech 3 times in a row. We're going to look at the different things each team is going to need to do to win this big battle in Chestnut Hill.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and this is AJ Black of Locked On Boston College with a special Locked On crossover edition for Locked On Boston College and Locked On Georgia Tech, your team every day. My name's AJ Black. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. I am joined today by Jarvis and Caleb of Locked On Georgia Tech, the new Georgia Tech podcast on the #1 podcast network out there, Locked On. Jarvis and Caleb, how are we doing?
I'm good, man. How about yourself?
I've been better.
Well, I don't believe you, AJ.
I'm like a clown smiling through the tears right now, but we're here to talk about BC's senior day against Georgia Tech. This is a big game for the Yellow Jackets. BC, maybe it's a chance for them to get things right. And we're on today's show, we're going to talk about where each team is at. So Boston College fans can learn about Georgia Tech. You can learn about BC. We're going to look at what each team needs to do to win this game. And we have some predictions and final thoughts as we wrap up our show. So let's start this off. I'm going to ask you guys. I got 2 Georgia Tech experts here. This has been quite the season. You went, just looking back just a couple years ago, Georgia Tech, you're looking at their schedule going, how the heck are they going to be competitive in a couple years? You got to face Georgia, Clemson. You got these tough schedules ahead of you. You're looking at a possible playoff team. What has Brent Key done to get to you where you're at right now?
I think it's been a combination of things, AJ. It's been the fact that Brent Key is a no-nonsense kind of guy. Like he's not who Jeff Collins was previous to him, who was the flashy, the Waffle House cup in his hand. I'm going to sell you on how Georgia Tech really is cool and the place to be. No, what Brent Key has done is it's actually the exact thing that Bill O'Brien talked about him earlier this week. Like he is a tough physical guy, and he's gone out and found tough physical players, whether it's Haynes King kind of running the show or, on the defensive side of things of getting some hard-nosed, some ball hawks like Omar Daniels. Like there's been so many different guys on this team who were castaways of other places. But at the end of the day, in their core beliefs is they're physical style football players. And that's how he's, really gotten the most success out of everyone out on the field.
And yeah. I'm going to ask, let's get Jarvis on this. Haynes King, probably the best quarterback BC's played this year, which is incredible because going into the season, I would have said it would have been Cade Klubnik. But Haynes King, he's also probably the most enjoyable player to watch in all of college, one of the top in college football, because this guy seems to put it in every game he's out there. What has he shown, Jarvis, since he's kind of, really taken the reins this year and put them at that level?
He's an Iron Man. Like when you think about a quarterback that has rushed the ball 3 times had 20 carries, 3 games this year, he's had over 20 carries running the football. And when you think about Haynes King, just be honest, AJ, Haynes King doesn't look like a guy that could run the ball 20 times and be effective, right? Because Buster Faulkner, it puts an emphasis on really doing a lot of window dressing, right? By pre-snap. Like you got a lot of motions and all of those different things to kind of get the defense to thinking is specifically that second level, because once you get those linebackers kind of trying to figure out what's going on, that's when you can really put the defense in a bad spot. And that's what Buster tried to do on a play-in and play-out basis. So, but when you think about what Haynes King brings to the table, not only the run game, he can pass the ball as well, and he's healthy this year. That's why I feel like he has had one of his best seasons, if not the best. You're talking about a guy that has 14 rushing touchdowns. He's second in the country as a quarterback, in that particular category. So, yeah, man, what Haynes King brings to the table, like, Caleb was describing Coach Key, like, you can say the same exact thing for Haynes King. He's tough. He's, gritty. He's just a guy that's just going to grind it out. It's not going to look pretty at times, but he's going to find a way to get the job done.
Now, this offseason, the big news out of Georgia Tech was losing Cam Coleman, and you lost one of the best players I thought in the country. And I was like, oh man, they're going to get hit by this. But you watch this offense, and they're dynamic, they're moving, there's all these moving parts. For someone who just likes college football, which at this point at 1-9, that's basically where I'm at. Georgia Tech is going to be one of the best teams to watch because they just do so much on that offensive side of the ball. What has stood out to you other than Haynes King so far out of that offense?
I think there's been a couple of different things, and it's funny. Jarvis and I have talked about Malachi Holsley and kind of the style of running back that he is, that does so many different things well, but is also someone who needs to step up more, because to Jarvis's point about like Haynes King and the number of games that he's run the ball 20 times or more, like it's sure football is not a one-man sport, but if there's ever been a team where one man was doing so many different things on the field, it has been Haynes King. And so I think we've been kind of talking about how whether it's Isaiah Canyon or Eric Rivers, or like there are so many different guys on this wide receiver crew that you feel like need to step up. And then running back wise, whether it's Malachi Holsley or whether it's Jamal Haynes, I think, these guys have shown really great skill sets. It's just not consistent enough. And one of the big problems that got them in trouble against NC State was the fact that they kind of turned away from running the football as much because it became a shootout, and it relied on Haynes King having to throw the ball deep. And I think, the consistency between him and his receivers weren't necessary there. He's also had some injuries that, they've kind of, the Georgia Tech's dealt with in the wide receiver core as well. So like, there's just been a host of things that have gone right. And it's so difficult to not just want to give all the credit to Haynes King, but I think to some point, like he's got an offensive line that's been really consistent and blocked for him extremely well. And up until the NC State game when they lost, their left tackle to an injury and he didn't play the second half, like that has really been, a strong factor in protecting Haynes King, keeping him from giving up a ton of sacks this season. But it's definitely, you're looking at other guys of like, okay, now you've got to go and show that you can step up and help King out.
All right. I've been enjoying just learning about Georgia Tech from you guys. That's the best part of this crossover, is to get the details, because, we don't get to see Georgia Tech every single year, but that's what we're here for now. In a moment, we're going to flip the script here and let Jarvis and Caleb ask me about Boston College. Talk about two teams heading in different directions. I'll give them a chance to ask what is going on in Chestnut Hill in just a moment. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. The Celtics, I'm a Boston guy myself. They've been playing pretty well, even without Jason Tatum. You can find the odds on their games, get the over and under, maybe get yourself a 3-point shot hit by Sam Hauser or total points by Jaylen Brown. Add that in for a great parlay. Go over to FanDuel. You can do that right now. It's so easy. Anyone can do it. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. This is Locked On Boston College and Locked On Georgia Tech, here with a crossover episode. We've been doing these all season long, and we're doing another one with our great new Locked On Georgia Tech podcast. If you're not an everydayer of the Yellow Jackets and their show, you need to check them out now. And if you haven't checked out my show, I've had a busy week. And to get into more of that, Jarvis and Caleb, shoot.
AJ, man, like the thing that comes to mind when I think about Bill O'Brien is the disdain that I had for him because he used to coach for the Patriots,
Yep.
So yes, I'm gonna let that be known. Yes, I'm from Atlanta. I'm representing the Braves, all Atlanta teams. That's what I do. That's who I am, born and raised. I don't care what y'all, how y'all feel about
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
So when I came across this little video, about some of him getting a little upset about
The
a
sun is going to come out.
podcaster person, asking him a certain question, and he was talking about how he was being negative, and when I think about coaches responding in that manner, it seems like he got a little TBS, little tight booty syndrome.
Mhm.
Things might get a little tight around there in Boston. So, do you feel like his response is kind of indicative of how he's feeling about his job security at
I
this
don't
point?
look. Boston College is not a school that is reactive, and that for the good and the bad, right? Like, when I watched Steve Adazio 7 years ago and go, when are they going to fire this guy? Because I cannot watch this team go 6-6 one more time. And it took them 7 years to get rid of him. And now we're at Bill O'Brien, who 2 years ago I was on my podcast going, this is the perfect hire for Boston College. He's a local guy. He's got Patriot roots. This is the right fit for BC. And now I can't go to this point right now and say, this is the guy that they have to fire, because I don't think that's where it's at. I think there's two things going on right now for BC. One is there's injuries up and down this roster, and injuries are not an excuse you want to make. And there's issues with Bill O'Brien and the way he handled the transfer portal, which is on him, because they did nothing out of the transfer portal. And that's why they're kind of beaten up right now. But the defensive side of the ball, and this is why I don't have any faith that they can hold this game together against Georgia Tech. They're missing their starting linebacker, 3 of their 4 starting defensive tackles. They're missing both starting cornerbacks. They're missing depth at cornerback. They're missing a ton on the defensive side of the ball. And yes, there should have been transfer guys to fill those spots instead of going to true freshmen, but they're not. That's one issue. The other big issue, we're in the world of NIL now. We're in the world of where you're paying athletes. Boston College as a university is woefully behind where other programs are right now. And it's a big problem. And that's not something he can handle. That's not nothing he can do. He can go out there and say things, and he kind of alluded to it a little bit a couple of weeks ago, like that maybe they're not aligning themselves up completely. But BC has a priest president right now, Father Leahy, who's been around for about 500 years. And he,
give or take,
yeah, you know what I mean? He's been around since, they were wearing leather helmets. He does not really view athletics as it should be. He does not put the emphasis on that. And it's very clear, and it's been that way for ages. Well, he is retiring in May. And I could not be more excited, because they're bringing in the chaplain of the football team to be the president of the school. He is pro sports. He has been very adamant about how winning is very important. And I cannot wait for him to get to Boston College, because it's been way too long. Now, he's going to start his apprenticeship in January. I hope that at that point he can start to help Bill get the funds to get some transfers in here, because BC cannot have happen what happened this year, which has been a complete disaster.
AJ, I'm curious to know, just from the perspective, like you talk a lot about, players and the portal being used ineffectively, maybe like for Bill O'Brien, how refreshed does he need to make his staff? Because I'll say this, when I saw, and I kind of forgot, when I saw that Tim Lewis was running this defense.
Did you know who he was? Because I had no idea.
He was coaching defensive backs for the Falcons when I was in high school.
Yep.
And when I was like 80 years old.
Yeah.
Easily.
When I realized that, I was like, whoa, okay, in the world of the transfer portal and NIL, like these are so new ideas to a guy who I don't think was coaching previous to being at Boston College for like the last, 8-9 years, something like that. Like it was a really long time.
He was at the USFL or XFL or whatever. I mean, your point is stands.
Still,
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but dealing with professionals versus dealing with college kids, like
Yep.
how vital do you think it is for Bill O'Brien to potentially look at revamping this staff and be more relatable?
I think it's a big thing. I think one I
That's
saw
what
what
saying.
he so
Everybody's old.
he jumps in because Halfley left I think at the end of January, but he didn't get hired until the beginning of March. So he was way behind on the carousel. Like he on any guys that he probably could have got were gone. He was supposed to go to Ohio State, so there was all that movement. I was stunned with the hires he made for offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. You hired Will Long maybe a little less because like he was a Patriots tight end coach, but he's younger than me, and he has struggled. Like I'm worried. I'm worried about Bill because Bill and Will are super tight. That Bill needs to move on from him because he's not the right answer. And then Tim Lewis, who again, like you said, you were like, what? I believe if I remember correctly, he was coaching in the USFL, which doesn't pay your bills, and I think he was coaching high school in Georgia. I know his kid's at BC now. His style isn't bad, but again, like recruiting wise, he has no heat on the portal. I mean, in the anywhere, like no one knows who he is, so that doesn't help. So I honestly look at the staff. You have like 4 or 5 Halfley transfer guys that have hung on, and you've got a bunch of new guys. I wouldn't be surprised if any of them stay on. Like I'm sure he's going to keep a few, but you could make an argument for any of them to be moved on. I think Bill he's putting together what he calls an NFL developmental program. So he brought in a whole bunch of NFL guys. But to me, as someone, for 247 too, his message on that isn't hitting on the portal. You need younger guys that can relate. Halfley had that. Like these younger guys that just could relate to high school kids. They don't care about like that you coached for the Cleveland Browns or you coached cornerbacks for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That doesn't matter. So I think he needs to really think all of that because it's not working for BC right now.
Do you think he's burnt out?
I don't think he's burnt out. I think he's just waiting for the season to end. I think like everybody involved at BC right now is just the part that kills me, and this is an ACC thing, and I could have brought this up on the Lockdown ACC. BC has a bye next week. I'm like, just let the season end. I don't want a bye week. I just want to play Syracuse and for the portal to open so I can talk about something. I don't want a bye week. And I'm sure he probably feels the same way at this point. Just end this thing. We're old Yeller. We're walking out there. Put us out of our misery. It's over. It's over.
I guess, AJ, I'm curious just because there's so much negativity that I hear from the outside about Boston College and just this team in general. Like, what do they do? What does this team do well?
Dylan Larnagan at times looks pretty competent. They can punt the ball really well. That's good. Well, hey, when BC went 7-5 last year, this is the thing. Like, this is the part of Bill's message that drives me up a wall. Like, he's like, yeah, we're rebuilding. You won 7 games last year. Now you're down to 1. I don't understand. And you lost Donovan Azaraku. You lost, a couple offensive linemen, but you went backwards way more than I expected them to go. So the one thing that BC really could not do last year was punt. Their punting was worst in the country by far. They go out and they grab 2 punters in the portal, and one of them can really punt. So that was kind of nice. But other than that, no, they don't do much. They play like a 1-9 team.
Yeah, the one thing when I was at Coach Key's press conference that I thought was very interesting and it stood out a lot. He said, don't pay attention to the record, guys. I was like, oh, okay.
That was the same thing.
Yeah. So when a coach says that type of stuff, like that just means to me that he's trying to convince 18 to 24-year-olds that, hey, man, we can't afford to take these guys lightly because as you can see, we just got our butts kicked by the Wolfpack. So, hey, man, y'all can act like you want going up here and get an easy win, but these guys will find a way to get a win.
I mean, if you want to know where BC's at right now, as I mentioned to start this, that there's a bunch of injuries. Many of those guys are ready to come back, but many of them are just sitting because I think some of them are just going to save. I mean, at this point, Many of them are seniors. That's the killer part of all this. Like your starting cornerback, Amari Jackson, I think is on his 5th year. Like he's going to sit to either play another year or go into the transfer portal. It makes a lot of sense. So like a lot of guys are there, and they've got like a couple transfers too that are playing like 3 games, and they're going to sit too. So they're playing they're playing bare bones at this point.
I know you mentioned earlier, AJ, that the quarterback situation's maybe a bit up in the air. I'm more familiar with Lonergan because I actually realized I have a connection with him watching him in high school. But what are you kind of expecting there as far as what Bill's going to do in that direction?
It's been the biggest. Last year, you saw him do this with Thomas Castellanos and Grayson James, and it made sense then. Like I saw that happen, and I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense." Because Tommy was struggling. You put in Grayson, and they got a spark out of it. This year, they have bounced between Dylan Lonergan and Grayson James like 3 or 4 times. As you know, Notre Dame 2 weeks ago, they start Dylan Lonergan. He looked awful. So they put in Grayson James. He kind of did a little bit, but that was it. And then Grayson James comes out last week against SMU. He looks awful. He turns the ball over on the first 2 downs. They go back to Dylan Lonergan. He looks okay. I don't know where they go with this. You can make an argument for either of them. I personally think Lonergan did enough against SMU. They just can't score, so that doesn't matter. But he threw for 230 yards. He was able to move the ball down the field. They just fell apart in the red zone every time they got there. So I think they probably will go with Lonergan, but I also don't discredit that it's senior day. It's Grayson James's last game at home. They may, just because the season's done anyways, start him and see what happens. So there's an argument for both.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games where I feel like the end result is probably going to be what you think it's going to be.
Yep. I'm going to tell you that starting the 3rd quarter, I'm going to be prepping my post-game show up in the press box, getting ready to roll. We're like, I'm going to get out of here at 7 o'clock. And it's been one of those seasons. It's been so rough for BC fans, because I think going into this year, you expected the season to be tough. But like I said, you had Grayson James. He looked good last year. He beat UNC. He beat Pitt. He beat Syracuse. He held his own against Nebraska. When you have a quarterback, you expected it, but then everything just fell apart. And now we're just there's no way to put it all together now. It's just not there. All right. So we ready to do predictions in a moment?
Yeah, let's do it.
Good.
All right. We'll be back in just a moment to give predictions on the Georgia Tech and BC game. We'll be back in just a moment. When the opposing whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on the doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items for the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. And with their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support, make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Locked on Boston College and Locked on Georgia Tech here. We're doing our predictions and final thoughts here for the Georgia Tech BC game on Saturday. This is the senior game for BC, the end for many of BC's players. And Georgia Tech, obviously, they're looking to try to get themselves up for that playoff spot. So Jarvis and Caleb, I'll let you guys go first on this one. Who are you picking and why?
I'm going with Georgia Tech on this one because I feel like just being in the press conference and kind of feeling Coach Key, because he's one of those guys that's a straight shooter. It's hard for him to give you the coach speak. He likes to say what's on his mind, and sometimes it can be very funny, and sometimes it can be a little awkward. But
yep.
When he talks about that Wolfpack loss, you could tell it still eats him up inside. So I really feel like he's going to be pounding these guys' heads like, hey, man, we just got our butts kicked. I know that was a week and a half ago, but we just got our butts kicked, and we can't afford to take no L against a team like BC. So, and I feel like Caleb and I were talking about on Locked on Georgia Tech about just the offense and kind of how, like, who probably needs to start to get a little bit more of a carry the load a little bit more. And you talk about Malachi Hosley. I think Jordan Allen, who's a freshman wide receiver, last couple of games, Buster Faulkner has been getting him involved. I think you're going to see a lot of him as well. And I feel like this is going to be a game that Tech is going to win because, like, I feel like Coach Key is just in a headspace where he has to cleanse himself of that loss.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow with Jarvis, and I think Boston College is playing Georgia Tech at quite literally the worst possible time, for the simple fact of, yes, they're coming off a loss, and then secondly, they had a bye week to sit and think on it and stew on it and get angry, and then realize that their opponent across the way, yes, they're going to be told all week not to focus on the record and all those sorts of things, but who's injured, who is not available, who is available. And I think for Georgia Tech's offense, this is an opportunity to continue to boost Haynes King in that Heisman conversation that I think he's being taken for granted in and not going to realistically be a big part of. But you've got the 9th best offense in the country. Haynes King has already, in the game that they did lose, he threw for 400 yards. He rushed for 100 yards. Knowing that, BC has given up some big games, whether it was Pitt, whether it was Louisville, yeah,
everybody,
yeah. But I think there's been a couple there that kind of stand out amongst the others, and I think Georgia Tech wants to put their name amongst that as well. I am concerned about this Georgia Tech defense. I will say, them having the time to get healthy and then be angry about how many points they gave up to NC State. Will certainly, make a difference. But, if I don't mind score predictions. If I saw 48-10 in this one, I would not be the least bit surprised.
Oh, you're right. Wow, we're like in the same ballpark, Caleb. So yes, I have watched every BC game this year, obviously, and I've seen them try. Effort has not been an issue with this team. Execution has, and they, against good offenses, have really, really struggled. And I don't think, their star linebacker, Bam Crouch, showed up for the Notre Dame game, and I think he's probably done for the season so he can get his year, extra year. That's a big issue because they don't have anybody at linebacker that can really stop, a Haynes King. That's what they need. They need a guy out there that can spy, that can do that kind of stuff. They don't have that. So I'm looking forward to another game where Georgia Tech runs up and down the field. BC fans will be out of the stadium by third quarter again, and I'm going to go with 48-17 as Georgia Tech really solidifies their playoff hopes. But I said I had a surprise, and if you listen to Locked On BC, I always have surprises. I don't think that's going to make a difference because in a couple weeks, I think another team is going to take over.
What is going on here? What is this?
Jarvis, I feel like we need to leave the screen, don't we?
No,
I don't know.
Going on?
Where do I?
Oh, man, my other one didn't go.
What? It's time to end this show right now. This is blasphemous. What is going on here? Oh my God!
AJ's trying to get us in trouble.
AJ, I don't say those guys' name on the show. I refer to them as the guys up the street. The guys on 316 and all that stuff. Yeah, I don't say their name. But
look, it's a stupid family tradition. I have a dog that I rescued from Georgia. She's part bulldog. Okay. And I've sat through many crappy BC teams. And so we got my dog. My dog came with a Georgia collar when I got her from the rescue.
Okay.
We kind of adopted the Bulldogs, and I know all about them as a fan base. And believe me, I'm not an SEC fan, but that's been our thing because that's our family. That's our rescue. So yes, we have our Q shirt. This is my wife's shirt that I'm actually wearing right now. But I had this saved up. I was like, my wife is going to laugh her butt off when I do this. I actually had a Georgia logo, but I couldn't get it to work. So
yes, I'm glad you couldn't.
Right. Listen, when you have if I was just down here and doom and gloom everything, this is what I got to do to get people to listen because I can give you my hot takes. But when BC, I got 3 more months of BC basketball coming up. Whew. Locked on BC is going to be
God
tough.
bless you.
Yeah.
Bless you, man.
So I wanted
We're gonna put you on the couch for therapy Mondays, man. You know, we have therapy Mondays because we talk about the Falcons all the time.
Right.
So yeah, we're gonna have to invite you down and hop on the couch, man, and just have a little couple.
You're not
sessions
going to
with
want to
us.
hear that the Patriots are what keep me from going, into the loony bin right now because, man, Drake May.
I know,
What
man.
speaking of the Patriots and to talk about cheating, I do have a story that I wanted to make sure made the podcast on Dylan Lonergan. I realized earlier this week that I have a connection to Lonergan because I was working the sideline for 92.9 The Game and the Corky Kell Classic when Brookwood was playing Norcross, and that was Dylan Lonergan's senior season. This was a game played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And so, there's no replay in high school football. However, there was a game-winning, and I'm going to put it in air quotes, game-winning touchdown throw by Dylan Lonergan to his teammate that they confirmed. They initially called it pass interference, and then his head coach, Philip Jones at the time, pointed up to the Jumbotron and said, "No, you missed the call. You missed the call." The officials looked up at the Jumbotron and changed their decision, and there is no replay. There is no instant replay in high school football, but they changed the call, and Brookwood went on to beat Norcross in the Corky Kell Classic that year. Yeah,
Dylan is a perfect fit for Locked On BC. For
he
Boston
really is,
College.
man.
Perfect fit.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right, guys.
Perfect.
Jarvis and Caleb, where can people find you?
You can find us on Locked On Georgia Tech on Instagram, Twitter, and all that stuff. And you can follow me on Twitter as well at Jarvis D90.
And I'm at ATL Johnson 18.
And you can check me out at Locked On BC, where the sun is up and they're still fighting at Boston College. That was the other part of the Bill O'Brien thing. Anyways, check me out at Locked On BC. You can check me out on Twitter and over at Eagle Insider. And we'll be back. I will be live tomorrow. Actually, not live. I'll be with Mitch. And you can check out Jarvis and Caleb on their show. So thank you all. And we'll see you again for another episode of Locked On BC and Locked On Georgia Tech on the Locked On Network. Your team every day.